we are at slim pickings this morning, man. I'm telling you, this is the faithful few we have here this morning. The faithful few. All right. How's everybody this morning? Everybody okay? Yeah. Test. All right. All right. Well, we're gonna we're gonna make the best of it. We are a small class this morning. We may have some online, so good morning if we do to those who are participating in class online um, this morning. We are continuing our survey of the book of Joshua, and I'm going to tell you just right away that our classes have typically tracked or kept pace with what our reading was for the week, but um, for this class, we're staying in Joshua, but we will not be in our reading this week, which was the Joshua passages for this week were chapters 22, 23, and 24. But we're going to stay where we were, which is around Joshua chapters 9 and 10. And that's because we ended our class on a little bit of a cliffhanger last week. And so I posed a question uh, to you, hoping that that you might think about that. But we're gonna explore this cliffhanger question again this morning, just to try to see if we can deepen our understanding of the mind of God. But this is good. So again, cliffhanger. I'm gonna recap or retrace our steps very quickly. And then we'll take up this so-called cliffhanger question. So, quick review in Joshua chapter 6 and 7. This is where the nation of Israel successfully took Jericho. But when we get to chapter 7, they lose their next battle in the city of Ai. And that was due to the sin of a man and named Achan and his family, who stole some of the treasures of that city, the gold, the silver, and other things. God said before they went in and took that city that everything in that city is devoted to him. Everything is under a ban. And no one was to take anything, but this family took some anyway, and the whole nation got punished. And part of their punishment was them losing their next battle at Ai. All right, so that's what we see in Joshua chapter 6 and 7. One more time, putting this map on the screen to remind us of kind of how this conquest journey began. So, first of all, pointing out that black vertical line, that is the River Jordan. All right. And so when the nation of Israel began its campaign to take over the promised land, they started on the east side of the Jordan, specifically this blue X in a city called Shittim. They started on the east side of the Jordan, and then they were going to cross over and over to the west side of the Jordan. So that circle there is Jericho. That blue circle is Jericho. That's the first place they went. And then as they crossed over the River Jordan, miraculously, the same way they crossed over the Red Sea, God parted the Jordan River and they crossed on dry land. And then that green X is an approximation of where Ai is. So again, if I go back, they go from Shittim, the blue X, they cross the river to the circle Jericho, they take Jericho, and then their next place is Shittim. I'm sorry, is Ai, the green X there in the circle, and that's where they lose their first battle. But then, after repenting, they they win on the second go round. All right, so this is where we are. Then we find ourselves. We're going to look at Joshua chapter 9 one more time together. But before we do that, I want to invite you one more time to turn to Deuteronomy chapter 7. And the reason we're going to start there in Deuteronomy 7 is because Deuteronomy gives us essentially a recap of the law that God gave. He sort of reviewed the law with the nation one more time before they crossed over into the promised land. And I want you to see what God said to the nation as they're preparing to cross over into the promised land. I want you to see what he says to them in the first 6 verses of chapter 7. Anyone willing to read that for us nice and loud? Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 6. Any takers? Any takers? Any takers? All right, Jeff. Deuteronomy 7, 1 through 6. I want you to see what God had to say to the nation of Israel before they planned to cross over into the promised land. Perfect. Okay, so again, so we just read the first 6 verses of Deuteronomy chapter 7. I want to make sure that we are on the same page about what God is communicating here. In a nutshell, I want you to tell me, in a nutshell, God has prohibited the nation from doing what when they cross over into the promised land? What does he restrict them from doing? What's the prohibition? All right. So number one thing is so let's look at verse 2 together again. Verse 2 says, "And when the Lord your God shall deliver them," meaning all the people in the promised land, all the Canaanites, when he delivers them before you, and you shall defeat them, then you shall utterly destroy them. You shall make no covenant with them and show no favor to them. So one of the prohibitions or one of the restrictions is that God does not want the Israelites to make covenants with the people of the land. Any other restriction that you see in here besides not making covenants? Very good. Jared points out that God doesn't want them intermarrying with them. Look at verse 3. And verse 3 says, "Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons." And God even tells us why he restricts. In verse 4, he says, "For they will turn your sons away from following me to serve other gods," little g. "Then the anger of the Lord will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you." One last thing I want to point out is that this applies to all the people of the land. Look at verse 1. Verse 1 says, "When the Lord your God shall bring you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and shall clear away many nations before you." Listen to the nations: the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and notice, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and stronger than you. God says, when I deliver them over to you, I want you to completely destroy them. I don't want you to make any covenants with any of them. I don't want you intermarrying with them. And he says, the reason is if you start mixing with this Gentile bunch, they're going to draw you away from me. That's the restriction. We clear? Great. So now let's flip over to Joshua chapter 9. We're recapping this. Joshua 9. Anyone else interested in reading a passage this morning? Anyone else? Jeff read one for us. Anyone want to read for us this morning? Our usual readers are gone, man. Melissa's not here. Mark Boozer's not here. Jerry Traver's not here. No one wants to read this morning. All right. You're gonna pick up. So we're gonna get to both of you. So Jerry, I'm gonna have you read the first 13 verses, and then we'll pause. We'll talk about it, and then if you would, you'll capture chapter 9, 14 through 27. Okay. All right. So Joshua chapter 9, first 13 verses.
before Lebanon, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites heard of it, that they gathered themselves together with one accord to fight